welcome to the Building Web3 podcast. Today I have my good friend, David. We're going to be in for an absolute treat because we're going to be touching on everything from AI agents to Polymarket to prediction markets, everything very cool under there. But real quick, David, how did you get into this Web3 industry? Because I know you're very prestigious. We've got a Cambridge PhD on the call. So talk to us a little bit about how you got into this space.
I just got attracted by combining AI with crypto and wallets. This is now a very common idea, but I did it sort of 2018 is when I started. And I had come across this concept of agents, autonomous agents, and it kind of was obvious to me that like crypto or blockchains rather would be the rails for them. And kind of leaned into that from then onwards. And there's lots of twists to that story, but that's sort of the gist of it.
Well, talk to us about how you made that kind of fundamental insight, because I think prior to maybe 2023 or 2024, not many people were thinking about the intersection of crypto and AI, maybe with the
Correct.
exception of Near. So talk to us a little bit about how you had that initial insight and how that's maybe evolved to the present day.
Yeah, definitely not many people. In fact, like when we would go to conferences, people would look at us rather confused as to what we're doing there. I think there's many parts to it. Like initially I worked at another protocol, so some of the insights came from sort of being embedded in that environment, Fetch AI at the time. And what attracted me to actually even work for them was that I was building, software at the time, was doing machine learning, not the type that we're doing today, much more primitive. And I could see how like there's a there. I didn't predict what we have today, but it felt like natural that software would be like a consumer of this technology, which I feel is very hard to use, even with like relatively good UX. There's a tremendous amount of context that you actually have to have in order to deal with like, crypto primitives, like what even is a DEX, right? Like that's not a question people usually would have answered to themselves before they get into crypto. And so there was that. And then, like with that kind of UX angle being one side of the equation, the other thing was just like if you started looking at the time into sort of how agents are built, it became very obvious that most of the experiments had been done in a sort of context of a company or maybe across company boundaries, but that was more like academic rather than actually in production. And it to me was like, if you read the definition of an autonomous AI agent, it's like it's a definition that's been around for a long time. It's basically a system that takes in information from the environment, reasons about it, and then acts upon the environment and has sort of specific goals. And it seemed kind of obvious that we would be able to kind of scale these kind of systems, and that some form of like coordination will be a key piece, and coordination has always been a key piece of what crypto facilitates. And then the other thing is just like payments infrastructure and sort of exchanging goods and services. And so that's kind of how I came at this. What was the second part of the question?
Well, I was just interested in how you kind of started to see that intersection and have an initial thesis around it. And you talked about how when you first started, it was relatively primitive. Talk about how you're kind of seeing this evolve, because I know we're going to soon talk about your company, Valerie, Olas, and some of the projects you guys are working on.
Yeah, so initially we had these high-level insights, wrote a bunch of papers, developed some software, and then and that was all when I was at Fetch AI. And then I think the big sort of learning I also did there is that Fetch AI tried to do everything sort of at once, right? Like agent frameworks, agent communication frameworks, discovery, like things like have with ERC 804. Also machine learning on chain, like which since then no one has actually really done on chain, because it's like really not such a straightforward thing to do. Maybe it doesn't even make sense like that. And so I had this kind of real like tour de force of all these kind of different things, and I was building the agent frameworks there. And then when I left, one part of this was just my entrepreneurial nature, wanting to kind of be my own boss. The other thing was that I had sort of gone at this insight that agents could be very valuable to what DAOs were at the time, which seemed like really not DAOs. Like they were autonomous in name only, and it was like very kind of heavy off-chain processes. And we felt that agents could be this plug that you could put on top of a DAO to kind of formalize these off-chain processes in an off-chain agentic system that then can sort of deal with them and make the DAO actually autonomous. So we developed like a software architecture that enables exactly this. It's like basically a set of agents that run off-chain, and they collectively form one big agent that can kind of do whatever the DAO wants it to do. We shipped that actually. Like some of our customers were like Balancer, CowSwap, Ceramic, and what we learned in shipping these systems was that actually, like, DAOs themselves had so many struggles, particularly go-to-market of their like core products, that like making those ops better was just always like a second or third order concern, rather than like the kind of thing that was really their main pain point. And so that's quite bad if you like, shipping a product, like if your customer sees your thing always secondary to something else, like that's not a good go-to-market. And so over time, we kind of shifted away from this like B2B angle where agents are these kind of off-chain systems that facilitate what DAOs do there, to really just agents that users use to get stuff done. And in a sense, like an extension, like, or an interface between the human and what they want to do. And that sort of transition was also really shaped by the arrival of ChatGPT, because obviously as large language models become widely available via API, it was possible to build entirely new type of like agents. And so that was sort of a real shift from the kind of go-to-market for us, and then also from the kind of problems we were solving, and actually fundamentally how we were architecting these systems. And I think particularly this last bit is like actually accelerating, like the architectures of these AI agent systems are changing a lot now.
Yeah, well, talk to us a little bit about, so we've got Valerie, we've got Olas, and then I know I want to talk about Polystrat as well. So square those for the users, because I know those terms are going to be coming up quite a bit.
Yeah, so right now we were very high level sort of on how I got into this. In 2021, we co-founded with my two co-founders, Valerie, and it's like a labs. And we initially just set ourselves this goal to build sort of better and better autonomous AI agent software that always will remain open source. And so very naturally, from the beginning, we were thinking of how would that sort of square with these crypto primitives, and we always wanted to have a DAO. So in late 2021, we started the Olas DAO. Initially, it was called Autonolas, and since a few years, we just call ourselves Olas. And the shift that I explained earlier, initially quite B2B and then later much more B2C, played out over those years. So now we're like, first and foremost, B2C. We have a product in Olas that's called Pearl. It's basically an AI agent app store where you get access to various AI agents. One of our key products that we launched this year is Polystrat, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's like from the perspective of a user, an AI agent to trade in prediction markets. And so Pearl is that platform on which everything runs, and the sort of where Polystrat is the use case. Pearl has multiple of such agents, but it always brings like a core value proposition to the user, which is that not just can you own your keys to own your coins, so like you're self-custodying your wallet, but also you're self-custodying your entire agent. So it runs on your device. That actually was a non-obvious design choice. And until like a month ago, everyone would always say like, why are you doing it this way? And I think now with OpenClaw, people are really seeing why that's sort of the interesting way to pursue. And then behind Pearl is effectively this Olas protocol. So Olas as a protocol is a set of on-chain smart contracts that have sort of different features that support agent economies. We have to date had agents mediated via OLAS do over 14 million transactions on chain. And they all come from these various use cases that end users run in Perl. And so we'll in a moment speak through all these use cases, or one of them, Polythread, because it's very kind of educative on how it all works. But OLAS has a key thing that sort of supports these Perl use cases, which is it has an agent-to-agent marketplace, the OLAS marketplace. And so at this point, it might be helpful to talk a little bit about Polythread. Otherwise, it's all a bit
No,
abstract.
absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about let's talk about prediction markets, because most people that listen to the podcast are going to be familiar. But for people that are unfamiliar with Kalshi and Polymarket, just give them like a 1 to 2 second summary on what they're doing there, and then let's dive right into Polystrat.
Yeah, so prediction markets, effectively mostly binary markets. It's easiest to understand. It's like where there's a question and you can sort of answer it with yes or no, and it's usually time gapped, like always time gapped. And the interesting thing is that the answer is uncertain, right? And so like what you as a participant in this market want to do is sort of take a position on either side of the markets. And then that if a lot of people or agents do this, you start getting like the market price reflect the probability of this happening. And so as such, prediction markets are actually very useful, not just for the people betting in them or participating in them. It's also very useful for anyone who's observing them, because like you can use them as a source to know like, will the next president be X or something, right? With a certain likelihood. So this is the kind of technology we're talking about here. And obviously Polymarket is I guess the most crypto native one of those that's really huge by now. And then you've got Kalshi, which is a more sort of regulated US kind of version of it, but not as crypto native yet. And we've been building agents for a long time. As I said, when we started this go-to-market with user-owned agents, we actually launched in 2023 in summer. We launched a prediction market trader on Omen. So Polymarket is a little tour of history, but Polymarket originally forked this kind of idea from another set of contracts. They're called Omen. And all credit goes to Polymarket for making this big, not throwing any shade there. But basically, we originally launched the agents there on Omen and had them trade there on Gnosis chain. And we've done that for several years and actually saw like how good AI agents can be and sort of predicting the future. And really what's happening there, we now have brought to Polymarket. And I want to walk you through a little bit how it works, because it's like very important. So in prediction markets, like in any form of market, there's a lot of strategies like participants can take, right? So some might like just sort of follow on, like play like follow-on strategies to like key traders that they follow, they believe in, right? Others will do some arbitrage. So maybe they see that like one market is sort of mispriced if you see it in the whole of the different set of markets. So maybe there's 3 markets, they're somewhat related. If you do the maths, you figure out that if you take a position over here, you basically get free money. So that's like what's called arbitrage. Obviously also exists if you have like the same token across 2 chains, like people will try to arb the difference. So many different strategies people can apply to participate in prediction markets, and most of them are very healthy, like they lead to a better market outcome, to basically tighter and better predictions. Our agents purely trade based off the intelligence that's sort of in the models plus public information. Because another thing is private information. So some prediction markets, right, if they're about something very unique, like private information can drive a lot about the outcome. So let's say if like, Trump will say something in a speech, well, that a few people actually know, right? And so they might have an edge in this market. Whereas let's say the weather is a more chaotic system. So it's harder to see that someone has really private information there. Maybe they have like, information that hasn't percolated into the market yet or something. Anyhow, so our AI agents, the Polythread agents, they basically under the hood work just as very principled and more efficient traders that take public information and the intelligence that's available in state-of-the-art large language models. So let's say there's a market that our Polystrat agents look at. These are, selected from the whole sets of markets, so they don't trade on all markets. We've over the years learned that, AI is good in some markets, not so good in others. So we apply that knowledge there in the selection of the markets, or the software does. And then the Polystrat agent will, have a certain market in question, and it will say, okay, well, let me basically apply a prediction tool to this market. And this is like for AI agent builders, like a common term. It's like basically just like a workflow. So it usually involves like, maybe pulling in some data from some proprietary sources or the public internet, and then constructing a prompt, passing this to a model, and then you get effectively a probability of what, that tool thinks that market is going to resolve at. And then that information gets packaged into like a sort of algorithm that's specific to prediction market that is like rules-based. It basically just looks at these probabilities, the depth in the market, where the price is, various other things, and computes like whether the agent should take a position, and if so, in which size. And so what we have is effectively these sort of very principled, rational Polystrat agents that people are using, right? So they are not like us humans, like driven by fear and greed. They're like just like principled actors in the market, and it's actually quite interesting to see. And what we're now having is that, people are just using this stuff.
So talk to us a little bit of how it works. Would I go into Perl and I would then be able to download a license of Polystrat, and then what it's doing is it's aggregating all of this public data in order to make a thesis as to what is the best.
So sort of. So basically the UX is, we ultimately want to cater anyone who even might just find prediction markets interesting, but not necessarily want to be there engaging with them. So you literally go to the website pearl.io, you download Pearl. It's a local desktop app. It comes download, you click install, it's there. And then you, in the app, can find different agents. You can select the Polystrat agent, and the Polystrat agent will walk you through its onboarding, which is basically, at some point it needs funds. And that you have different options. We made it very simple. You can just come with a credit card or debit card. Or if you're crypto native, there's like the more grayed out part where you can click there and then sort of on-ramp it from some other wallet. Now your agent is funded, and you're basically ready to go. You could just hit start and it'll start trading. You don't have to like chat with the agent, give it any kind of unique strategy. That's also possible. So most of our users actually just hit start, and then they see how their agent does over the next few days. And it sort of does what I was outlining before. Some of our users, then say, okay, well, I want to actually like shape that a bit more. And so for that, we have a co-pilot approach. So what you do is you basically go to talk to your agent via chat. You can talk to it in English, but really any language, because it's underlying large language model. And then that is basically like you having a conversation with the code that is Polystrat. And so we are currently like expanding there what you can do. So right now you can sort of effectively define hyperparameters, right? And sort of learn about the agent. But as time goes on, that becomes richer and richer. And it's actually an intentional design choice. You have on the other end like architectures like OpenClaw, which I find also very interesting, that are very, very open-ended and very sort of permissive, and all sorts of things can happen. Like our design of the AI agent is very basically tied down. Like we don't want Polystrat to suddenly become your like friend on your Telegram. We feel like that's a different agent. You should have like a different agent for this, because that makes it simpler to have Polystrat actually also be safe. Because what you don't want is that, let's say you chat with your agent and then by accident you have a prompt injection and now it starts like draining its wallet or something, right? So like there's a lot of intention gone into making sure that Polystrat stays Polystrat and doesn't suddenly become like something else.
All right, so no Polystrat AI girlfriend, just narrowly defined to trading on Polymarket. That makes a ton of sense. And then talk about how long has this been released? Tell us some of the success stories around it.
Yeah, so we released last Tuesday success stories. So, for instance, like we have the social sharing feature, which we brought in from the start. So anytime like a user has like a outsized trade, like their agent, they can share it. So we've already had like tens of those come in where people have very exciting stories, and then obviously we also have users reporting their like overall ROI. So I think like one user was just posting yesterday, and it's repeated by our account how they were like doing 8% ROI in that like 1 week. Now, of course, you have to that's like a financial product also have to say like do your own research, and I'm not like implying old returns or future returns. It is it's a product built on a very exciting technology prediction markets which are inherently uncertain. That's the whole point. And so you have a distribution, right? The way we look at it from Ola's perspective is like you have a distribution of outcomes in any given week. Some agents will do well and some will do better and some will do extremely good. And our job as a sort of protocol is to steer the development towards building agents that move the sort of distribution into better over time, right? So like all our energy goes into making the sort of average and median of this distribution get better, and try to have as few low performing polythread agents as is possible.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And then how do you guys monetize this, or is this completely free? Like, what's the situation there?
So it is free, and it's free to use in the sense that it's open source software, but there's a monetization model. So when you download Perl and set it up, there's one element here. A key element is we want you to be a network participant because you're getting the free software. So you have to stake some OLAs, which is the network token, right? It's a small amount right now. I think it works out at $5 or whatever. And most our users trade, with a budget of maybe $100 or so. So it's like small, and you obviously also get staking rewards there. The key revenue side for the protocol actually comes via the marketplace. So the way it works is that Perl, this end user application, obviously sits on your desktop, and that's where the agent core code is, where all the key control lies. So we, as a project, as I say, ship open source software. We don't control any keys. There's no custody element there. It's all on your device. But naturally, on your device, you won't be able to run like the best large language models. And some of the best large language models are closed anyway, right? So what happens is actually since 2023, we're probably one of the first, if not the first, AI agent project that does sort of agent-to-agent commerce with an agent payments mechanism. We built our own in 2023, and now upgrading it to incorporate X402 as well, which is sort of the emerging standard there. But basically what that means is that your local agent will also source intelligence and inference and data from other agents. So it does these sort of micro payments via the marketplace to tap into this. And you can see this from your wallet, and our website explains it in great detail. But that marketplace is a future revenue opportunity for all us, because at some point we'll turn on like a take rate there for all us, the protocol itself. Right now it's like fully passed through to the various providers.
Yeah, so talk to us now, future looking. So we now understand Polystrat. We understand a bit more about the marketplace. Talk to us about where you see AI agents going, because you've had this insight from many years ago, but I'm sure with things like OpenClaw being released, certainly some of your theses have probably changed. Talk to us about where you feel like agentic AI and crypto commerce is going.
Yeah. So I think like it's the prevalence of agents of all forms is going to just explode, and I think one key distinction in agents that has been very felt now by almost everyone is this experience between the co-pilot versus the more autonomous type. Like the co-pilot is the sort of thing where you're like there with your cursor coding agent or your chat GPT and you're doing their things reactive, right? And then like a polythread agent, an OpenClaw agent, they have this proactive nature where they're doing things when you're not asking them to. You set some high level goals and they do it. So that's this key dimension. It's a lived experience for many people now. We have another dimension that's sort of the product versus peer angle, or like being angle almost. Like it's like almost all the things we talked about on this podcast, all the things here, are products. And what I mean by this is like you have as a user a clear expectation as to what it delivers and should not deliver. And the moment it strays outside of this, you would say it's not a good product, right? I don't want my police threat agent to suddenly, start like soliciting around my private information and maybe line up dates for me. Like I never asked that for that, right? So that would be clearly a failure case of the product. But also it leaking my private key, for instance. You have now this kind of clear interest, because this technology is so interesting, that people want to push towards this peer angle. And I think at this, or like being angle, where it's almost like you give an AI, a bunch of capabilities, and then you just sort of let it roam free. That's the idea, right? Like you give it a wallet, you put it free on the internet, and you hope for the best. Now that certainly like has an element of excitement that I can see everyone can see, right? But I think it's also really like problematic space, right? Like you can see how this can go really, really bad, really fast, because obviously your agents could like do things that are just outright illegal or criminal, and like you are going to be on the hook for that because you're the one running it. And then this idea that we have like self-replicating things that no one controls is a bit scarier still, because they could also go in a direction we don't want to. So I think there's a entirely new design space, not just in crypto, but generally in like agentic AI, that will become very actually hard to like it will be very elements of excitement mixed with elements of fear and actual like justified fear. So I don't know what we'll see there in this year, but I think we'll see a lot, and maybe not all the experimentation there is the best to be done.
Business idea for some of the listeners. Maybe you could make an agentic prison or an agentic.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah,
island.
But
I get bad agents
exactly.
over here.
Exactly. So we'll see. I mean, experimentation and attention there is driving a lot. What I'm most excited about is this product category. So not the like peer or being category of an autonomous AI agent. Because I think agents can like in crypto and outside really bring a lot better product experiences to us. I mean, like a clear example are, autonomous driving cars, right? That can take you from A to B, where again, it's a very the product factor. You do not want it to then suddenly do like other things that you didn't plan to do. I can see, as I said, in crypto since a long time, that agents become actually that app via which we access this technology to get stuff done efficiently and in a way we liked. But I think also in like social, you can see it. Like there's this clear issue where people feel like when they're on like social media, might I not be seeing what I want to be seeing, right? Like, am I actually like consuming the content I want? But there's clear applications for agents because they could, in theory, read all of it, and you could then like have your agent kind of provide you what you want to see based on your own preferences, right? What we clearly want to lean into at Olas, and where we see a large sustainable kind of market, is this whole notion of owned agents rather than rented agents. I think the more these even products become like tightly interlinked with our life, the more we strive for having like more control over them. And as a result, I think this mode where you self-host an agent and have maximal control over it is really exciting. Obviously, the capabilities need to keep up. So if like over there, the rented agent has like 10x capabilities, that's a hard sell. But if it's a sort of on par in terms of capabilities, I think there's a very exciting space there to explore. And I think it'll range all the way from like Apple coming out with new cool products to other, hardware producers coming out with new cool products that have more this agentic form factor, to software companies like us building like for this kind of market. And with the final point on the agent to agent commerce, I mean, it's kind of feels so obvious to me that I often kind of take it as a given, but like not all like the agent part does a lot of heavy lifting there. Not all of it has to be an agent in the sense it has its own autonomy and own goals. It can literally just be an API that no longer has an API key, but a crypto micropayment, right? Because that turns it into like a different type of internet where I can let loose my agent that I own myself, and it sort of can programmatically access a whole range of things whilst I sleep or do other things, always kind of being guarded by my original intent, right? Or my high level goal. And I think that kind of agent to agent commerce, that is really going to happen a lot now, because everyone's kind of rejigging their business to be like agent first, basically.
Yeah, I have to say it's a very exciting future, and also with some excitement comes some anxiety as well. I swear that when I'm on Twitter, sometimes I'm like, yikes, that scares me. But an exciting future nonetheless. We focus a lot on consumer crypto here. So obviously we talked a lot about agents. We talked a little bit about Polymarket. Do you have any prediction for the consumers out there and where crypto is going? Not necessarily price prediction, but any kind of trends. Do you see social taking off? Where do you see kind of crypto fitting in the future?
It's an interesting one. I do think that this agents, like wallets that are effectively agents, we've been talking about this for a long time, but I think like 2026 will like really bring one or two clear front runners there in terms of product that will make this kind of MetaMask approach, or like sort of, the old approach, look dated. And then what I would say on the social side, like social outside of crypto more generally, I think comes in those waves, people say, right? And I feel like there is definitely going to be this social of like the agentic social or whatever wave. It will probably split, like we already see Moltberg, like social network for agents, right? I'm not sure how sticky these are, because like agents are, and I don't care, they can read so much, they can do so much, they can coordinate more easily. I think on the human side, I'd be very shocked if like within 2 years or so we don't have like a serious contender to something like X and Instagram that is much and TikTok that sort of leans in heavily into this new paradigm of having like agents that represent you in social discourse. Like, I think there's like a very clear gap there, which like everything built right now, even the attention algorithms, is all around this limiting factor that we can only consume so much. And the social networks have very little incentive to ship like a custom algorithm for everyone, because a lot of this drives around this sort of centralized attention almost. Like there's only so much should be trending at any given time. They don't want it to fragment too much because it makes it easier to sell ads and whatnot. And I think what we'll see here is much more like a network that maybe, segregates agents and humans, like via some sort of ID thing like the orb or whatever from WorldCoin or some other approach like that. And then something where intentionally humans are represented as agents first on the substrate, and where humans then consume everything through their agent rather than directly through the network. Something like this, I think we'll see. Not sure when exactly. I think crypto specifically, for better or worse, will probably heavily lean into this like agents as beings, and it scares me, frankly, because I think it also might lay the ground for crypto to fully lose like the mainstream adoption chance. I think there's like a kind of two-sided thing here, because we're already seeing with like AI that like whilst there's all these capabilities coming from pure focus and hard grind there, crypto squanders a lot of time like playing to the meme coins, playing to this fat and like playing it out, and it wastes so much talent and energy. And it burns capital, right? And attention. And so I could see a world where we do also like this funny stuff with all the agent beings, and like it's fun every week, something new, but then it sort of never really sticks and fizzles out, or worse, leads to like some sort of real negative outcome for the space where some chains need to shut down because they're basically like, polluted by the stuff, and like there's too much concern around what the implications of it are for the real world. On the other hand, it could be like back to solarpunk, right? Like, and that's what we kind of, and cyberpunk vision, where we kind of hope it will go, which is like we really find a way for user-owned AI, and I think that part needs the crypto very much because like the AI in general has a very centralizing force. So if we don't create like sort of networks via which we can co-own, let's say, these capacities, then like we end up with these big labs as we currently are that kind of just have all the means of offering you the best experience. So yeah, my positive case is that we take the turn there, and my negative case is that we just continue what we did the last 2 years, which is sort of from the highs of DeFi summary kind of down only in a sense.
Well, let's hope up only future. So tell us a little bit about where more people can learn about you and your project. Call out your X profile, call out the website.
Yeah, so I'm David_NM on X. I'm currently talking about this being versus product thing a lot. It moves me. And the project itself, you go to olas.network. Our handle is still at Autonolas on X because that's how the name started. And yeah, if you want to try out Polystrat, you just head to pearl.u. It's a featured agent there. Just takes you 1 click from the website to download it and set it up. You can fund it with your credit card. And we have a Telegram channel at OlasChat, where I recommend you, as a user of Polystrat or any other Olas agent, come in because there's a big community of users. And also that's where you can come and share your feedback, and we'll do our best to make it better. I think you're muted.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'll put all of David's information down below, and we look forward to the next episode. We'll talk to you soon.